Today I'm going to talk about main theories of management. But before to start, let's think what management is. Most people answer this question as running the company, managing subordinates, and just keeping a close check on them. But as to me, management is an art. An art how to increase performance and in the same way to increase workers' job satisfaction. And that is why I've chosen the topic of two main schools of management, scientific management and management based on human behavior. So let me show you some main points of my presentation. First, I'll talk about scientific management. Second, about behavioral. And after both of them, I'll talk about their history. I'll show most famous followers. I'll talk about the main principles and pros and cons. My presentation will take only about 7 minutes, and you are well pleased to ask some questions if there will be in the end of my presentation. So here we are to start, and I want to start with such enormously important and well-known figure as Frederick Taylor. I will drop out some information about his biography because I don't think it's so important to bring up in my presentation. Frederick was a scientist, researcher, or professor of business school. He worked firstly as a laborer and then as a manager. Frederick set a task to rationalize the operations of worker according to his working activity. Starting with, Taylor thought about how to define and rationalize the task to achieve company's goals and to do well. It was him. He was the first man to separate managers and workers, and this is what has changed the world of management completely. On this slide you can see when his theory was developed, who were main followers, their desserts, and working in what companies the theory was developed. And now I want to talk about main principles, which are developed operations are to be studied and analyzed, management works out time and methods, standards are followed due to prescription, and employees are selected and put on correct place. And what is really important, managers are used to perform executive operations and plan. This theory doesn't assume any sensitivity in relationships between subordinates and superiors. Subordinates are just like machinery who brings out merchandises. So I've spoken enough about first school of management, and now let's move on to my second main point. And let me draw your attention on this man. A man who made a breakthrough in management, a man who shifted focus from tasks to human beings. Starting developing the theory, Altomain with a group of colleagues made a conclusion that high performance might be explained because of good relationships in company. All it was after a Houghton effect about how working conditions influence on staff performance. Firstly, with the growth and decrease of light, the performance increased, but when it was returned, performance stayed at the same level. That more or less covers the fact when a group of co-workers was chosen and offered different working conditions. After what, in 2 years, productivity increased up to 30%. And according to surveys, productivity mostly depends on relationships. Informal relations stay above company's rules and principles. And that leads me to my next point about principles of behavioral management, which are maintaining of high morale, about motivation, status within a group, feeling of belonging to a group, and what is really important, giving employees responsibility to decide on some solutions. So far I've talked about, I've reached the end of my presentation, and let's talk about scientific management. Scientific management consists of workers as machines who don't have any responsibility, taking into account motivation, good relationships, interest in job, no. Boring, repetitive job, but with tasks done on time and less costs, yes. And as for behavioral management, motivation, good relationships and job, interest in job, these components manage everything. And but two enormously big companies, Toyota and Ford, show us a good example how scientific management is useful even nowadays. And let's agree that spending time on workers' complaints and values, it has produced its own results. But both schools of management have one overall problem. Some employees want to attract attention to them, but some consider job as job and nothing more. It's just a place where they earn money. Both schools have some strong and weak points, and we can't judge what is better. But what we have scientific management, behavioral management, But what is next? Are we going to the times when just my schoolmates are to invent or to make a foundation of new management? Think about it. I'm free to contact and be advised, and every time, day and night. I'm sleeping with this idea, seriously. Contact me if you have some. And now I want to thank you for your attention and just give the floor to your questions.